This is the Frontline Focus Podcast, an experiment dedicated to those on the front line of construction project sites, focusing on their development as the key to the construction industry's progress. This is Season 3. Our focus will be on the business of well-being, why safety is a strategic advantage. In each episode, we will talk with a construction industry professional to hear their thoughts on how to shift the frontline focus on improving the well-being for all workers. Well, hello again. It is podcasting time. We are in Season 3 that we have started. Always with me, my tag team partner for a new adventure, Gabe Guetta. How are you doing today, sir?
We made it to Season 3. Yay. And 3 seasons of people want to talk to us, Rob. That's pretty cool.
It is. Cool people like our guest today, Leslee Montgomery. How are you doing today?
Oh, I am awesome to be hanging out with you two gentlemen. I know we're going to have a good conversation, so this is a lot of fun.
Yeah. How could we not, right? I mean, I feel surrounded by these two amazing advocates right now, Rob and Leslee, two people advocates, I will say. It's pretty cool. Definitely, if we did this podcast 10 years ago, it would be hard to find people like yourselves. Not that it wasn't needed then, but I am so thrilled to have the two of you, and there's many more coming out of the woodworks now, and it's really cool to watch the focus get to the field worker, the trade worker. And Leslee, we met, I want to say it was 5 years ago.
Yeah, about that now. Yeah.
COVID, thick of COVID. Well, not the thick of COVID. Just when COVID started to release where people could start coming together. Major conferences were still not opening.
Yeah.
Western Conference of Safety, which is a big one out west in Canada, draws a global crowd, was not open. And our good friend Tanya Steele was having none of that. So she's like, I'm going to do my own. And me and you met kind of on the side of the stage when we're both like, okay, I think I was up or you were up first. We were both doing a speech. I wasn't very well versed in speaking. I think it was your first speech. Maybe it was my second speech. And we both looked at each other like, are you as nervous as I am?
Yeah.
And we did well. I loved your speech, Leslee. And through that, I got to know you and your story. And I love what you're doing. I love your passion. I love your story. But most people here don't know your story that we're sharing this podcast out. So why don't we start there? Why don't we start with, tell us about yourself.
How did Leslee is awesome become this amazing force out here? Okay, cool story. So I would say it was a career change. I was a new mom, and I actually wanted to become a paramedic. So I found myself in first aid class, and a really good friend of mine there said, hey, if you really want to fix boo-boos and do stuff like this, you should come into construction because guys get hurt all the time. And I'm like, ooh, I can go do this. I can do this. I have the head for it. I can go take a look at it and fix people up. And that's what started. My gosh, I wish I had my boots now, like a massive steel-toed boot collection, because my first pair, I didn't know. I did not know what I was stepping into. And I fell in love. I was with a temp company at the time. They came back to me at the end of the week and said, you're our lady. And I'm like, you are darn right I am. I am sticking around. I started in probably one of the hardest neighborhoods, I think, to start a safety career. Back then, it was a 2-week course, and you could be the safety person on a construction site, like walking around these 30-year veterans. It's your little notepad, right, with your whole 2 weeks of experience underneath you. And not a lot of
and they just love to see you, right? Safety was like, oh, safety's here. Beautiful. How can we talk? How can we be safer? That's the environment, right?
Yeah, like just the crossed arms, right?
Oh, yeah.
Just go away, princess. We don't need to hear from you.
The text message, safety's coming on site. Everyone shut everything down.
Yeah. So, but I learned really quick that I wanted to stay, and that meant that I was going to have to figure out how to stay. It meant that there were going to be some tough days where you were not talked to the way you wanted to be talked to. You were in front of things that you didn't necessarily want to be in front of. And so I think you start to build what we're talking about now. Like, you start to build vulnerability from that piece because you want to say so. You put your heart on your sleeve. You realize that to get buy-in, I have to buy in. I gotta put gloves on. I've got to get a hammer in my hand. I've got to do stuff to make me safe to talk to, right? It can't just be the one that pops out of the office every once in a while with a camera and a notebook that says, this is what you've done wrong. I need to be there in the thick of it. And I really embraced that in my career. And I took a look at the options. And I think it was after I came out of CSO school, I was at the dump. And a lady was walking around and she was health and safety. And I thought, oh my gosh, like, I thought this course I took was construction based. This is everywhere. And that really affected me because I really started to take a look at the people I worked with and realize that I'm a salesman. I got to get you into PPE. I got to get you into safe work procedures. I got the job to do. You got the job to do. The superintendent is expecting us to do this. He's counting on us. I think I was a little stymied at first because I thought we were going to be a team. That's what I was sold in CSO school. I'm going to be out there protecting the super. We're going to be this amazing team. And I was basically told to go back to my office. Like, no, that doesn't work for me. I got to be in front of people because these are the people I have to either respond to when they're hurt or I'm being sent into the field to give them heck because they're not conforming. And that just doesn't work for me. So I started to really view the scope of work. And I think it's fast forward through time and tons of coaching programs is my ideal client is the end user of every one of these safe work procedures. And my job is to motivate them into doing this by teaching them that they have value. And the only way I'm going to be able to do that is to sit down and recognize them and to have these conversations that I think, Gabe, outside of the one we're having now, the ones that I get paid to have now, like 10, 15 years ago, stopping to have a 10-minute conversation with somebody because you could tell something was off for them. And you would watch leadership just pace and salivate like you were being surrounded by sharks or lions. Like, what are you doing? He's got to be at work. You're wasting my time right now. And like, I'm not wasting your time. There is something wrong with this individual. And this 10 minutes that I'm going to take to figure it out is going to be what helps keeps our schedule on progress, right? So about 10 years in, I struggled with my own mental health challenge. It was, actually earlier than that. It was the economy recession. It's new mom, new relationship, new home, new bills, new responsibility, no work. Nobody answering the phone. What do you mean you're not answering the phone? What do you mean there's no work? And then you're sitting on the side of the road and you're contemplating all of this. And if it wasn't for the fact that at that moment in time, the universe chose you, that somebody chose you to reach out and have a conversation with, you probably wouldn't be here right now because you're contemplating which bridge were you going to jump off of. Heavy stuff. And I hear this voice on the other end of the line and she says to me, I heard about you through this person and you're an amazing health and safety and we'd like you to come be part of our project. And yeah, you're like swallowing down your tears at that moment of like, holy cow, like, why me? Why me? And I don't get to talk about it much. I don't do it much anymore, but it's really neat to sit here and say that this industry that's struggling right now was the one that actually saved my life. And it is an absolute honor to be given the space that I'm given now, the respect that I'm given now from the expertise that I have to go onto job sites and just be the mental health person, be the mental health first aid provider, be the advocate, be the speaker, be the person that everybody can look to and say, well, what does vulnerability look like today? This is what it looks like today. And meet people in our industry of where they're at and have some conversations like, man, that sounds like things are really tough for you right now. How are you actually managing? What are some of the things that you're doing? And then also talking to some of these leaders out here. And I don't mean like senior management leaders, like mental fitness leaders out here that are so dialed in. And you're going up to them and going, hey, we work in the same industry. What are you doing? What is your secret? Because if you tell me your secret, there's a lot of people that listen to me about secrets that I know, and I can start sharing your secret out so that guys know they're not alone out here and that not only is help available, it's actually attainable. So it's really cool to be here now because honestly, not only did when I started, did I know that this is where I was going to be, but just to know that we get to have these conversations is absolutely monumental. It's magnificent because I've heard you share your story. And
Yeah.
it's through these conversations and stories that other people hear us and holy cow, I didn't know that was what's going on for you. Well, if you could do it, maybe there's a spot that says I can. Not that I'm
Yeah.
expected to, but there's an example that says that I could, right?
Yeah, I think I love your story for starters. And it's very powerful in many ways. I love how you say that the industry saved you because in your moment of dire straits, somebody from the industry called you to pull you out of it. The sad thing about all this is that your story is not uncommon and not everyone gets that phone call. There's thousands of people every year that are taking their own lives in construction, and it's a huge problem. And we're moving. We're not moving fast enough, but we are moving. The industry is trying to solve this problem. I actually, Ellis Dawn, they just hired a full-time, I think they have multiple, but a mental health. I think it's VP of mental
Yes.
health. I'm meeting with her tomorrow. It's incredible. You see leaders like that industry start taking point on this, right? Something that you talked to me about, Leslie, when we first started building our relationship that resonated with me, because I'm from the industry of construction, 15 years. There's never that feeling that when you talked about, I'm taking 5 minutes or 10 minutes to talk to somebody about how they're doing, and everyone starts looking at what are you doing? You're wasting time. It is totally the sentiment in construction. What are you doing? Who are you talking to? What are you talking about? What are you doing? You're supposed to be working, right? And another thing that you talked to me about is, I think you said to me, Gabe, imagine an office that had 350 people in it and not a single HR person. Would you ever imagine an office like that? I'm like, that's ridiculous. That would never happen. You're like, okay, every single job site out there is like that. 350, 1,000 people, 50 people, whatever it may be. There's nobody ever on site for HR to figure out how to manage people, how to work on them, their mental fitness, right? These people are the ones that are executing in the field. Their brains are the things that are operating that process and determining whether the product is going to be efficient, quality, all these things are up here. And we know for the most part, they're running on fumes, right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
so tell me about some of the stuff that you do when you go on site. Like some of it is simple tricks to create conversation because let's not kid ourselves. It's not easy to spark up a conversation with a 55-year-old, rebar guy, or a rigger or anyone on site, right? You got to crack that shell. So how are you cracking the shell?
Honestly, for me, I think it's easier to actually go onto these job sites and have conversations with these individuals because I find there's so much relatability. And you can actually see a person who works really hard. But I feel like it's easy to have a conversation, but is that conversation being received and how is it being received? So I always look like health and safety. That's how I was brought up. That's how I carry myself. That's how I prefer to dress. I got my good jeans, my good boots. They're worn in, but when you look at me, I'm safety. My vest is not dirty. It's not torn. It's all of that. So first thing I have to do is now specifically with the work I do is beat down kind of like that assumption, right? Like I'm here to be safety, but I'm here to be safety that we're all supposed to be. That piece of accountability that we're sold in orientation, we're sold when we join corporations, we're each other's peers keepers, we're going to look out for you. But the reality is you walk onto a job site and you see guys, no eye protection, no fall protection, nobody calling them out, nobody's strong enough to go and do that. And I think when you get some individuals in a one-on-one conversation, there's that bravado that says, yeah, I'll go talk to them. It's like, but you're not, and you don't. So when I get to go out there now, I get to say, but I'm your kind of safety. Like, I want you to get your paycheck from this job. As far as you are showing me and your behaviors, you're showing up every day. So something is hidden for you that this paycheck is working for you. So I don't want to see you lose your job because you forgot to tie off, because you're distracted by the fact that your wife just took a phone call and gave away your credit card number. And you're realizing that that wasn't a legitimate call that came in. You're not focused on work. When I go talk to them now, I say, I'm here to listen to you. And a lot of guys just kind of stand back. I say, no, in mental health, we realize that we're not doing well as an industry as a whole. If you haven't been told what our suicide rate is, let me give you a bit of knowledge. There's more likely that you will go home and die by your own hand, by yourself, away from your friends, which are here at the workplace, than you are to actually get hurt and die at work in front of me right now. And I'm going, that is heartbreaking to know that there's this massive gap. So I'm going to give you a candy from my candy bag. And I'm going to let you know that I'm safe to talk to, because I'm going to be relatable to you. I'm going to look in your work area and go, wow, did you get that much pipe up today? That looks amazing. Wow, did you dig that trench by hand today? Wow, that's amazing. But you're relatable. And there's something so monumentally beautiful about being seen out here. There's just like inherent value that goes along with it, that people start to understand that they're more than like the vest or the belt. Because I feel like the vest and the belt, they don't really ever come off. You don't get to retire from this industry. We have generations of plumbers, generations of proud electricians, like of bar installers that don't get the same amount of accolades and pride as you would if, say, you were a generation law enforcement, paramedic, firefighter. So being able to just say to somebody, you are amazing. I tell people all the time when I talk at conferences, I'm like, you want my phone. You really do. Because I know there's a plumber in there, and I know there's an electrician in there, and I know there's a concrete guy in there, and I know all of these guys, when I pick up the phone, are going to be right there for whatever I need. And that's a beautiful thing. That's an absolute beautiful thing.
That is indeed. I'm curious for you to dive a little deeper there. You've shifted that mental model of a safety professional from being the cop more to a coach. You're there in their corner. That's in the field with the dirty boots. How is that working for you in that corporate office with the shiny shoes? When you're at those conferences, which generally are not a lot of dirty boots, how are the shiny shoes picking up what you're laying down?
Most of these shiny shoes have a belt or a vest, and I think the problem with them is time stopped for them the day they took it off. And they still desperately want to be relatable, right? Like I know what it's like, but have you filled out an FLHA lately? Do you know what those letters mean? Like, I know you're prophesizing them to me in all of our material, but they're no different. Their responsibilities are exponentially harder. They're trying to get me to buy in so that I can go into the field, because they're responsible for millions, billions of dollars, on top of the fact that, and it sounds wrong to put it in that area, but all of the lives that go along with it. So when I'm in the corporate office, I still have a candy bag. I'm still walking around. I'm still listening for those heavy sighs. And I'm sitting there leaning in going, sounds like something's going on in your world right now. You just wiggle yourself in, you sit in the seat, and you're like, hey, want to chat? So, and you start to hear about it. So, because, and then you really just really understand the beauty of the whole industry. It's like, it's not that we don't know how to speak the same language. It's just that our focus has changed. Our responsibility is beyond what anybody else, I think, can comprehend. And I think that's, when people talk about construction workers, they truly don't understand the amount of responsibility that comes with every swing of the hammer, every twist of the pipe. Like, all of this culminates into a house, a road, a hospital that we don't ever get to see behind. So for me, there's, like, I know that there's always going to be this play between the field and the office, and the field's always going to be able to say, well, they don't know what it's like. Well, yeah, awesome. And there's a lot of cases where I'm sure Gabe, Rob, you and I can sit down and be like, we don't want the office out here. We want it to be the field. There's a different camaraderie that comes with the field. And when the office comes, we'll clean up nice. We'll tidy up our language. We'll put a smile on our face. And then we'll be like, whew, thank goodness the in-laws left. Let's get this house back to that mess it was. Whew, when are they coming back?
It is a crazy tribal industry at its core, really, right? We're all in construction, but there's definitely tribes. I don't even think it's that superficial level of GC versus trade. I think you hit the nail on the head. It's office versus field. There's still a very visible gulf between the two tribes. They're related.
Two completely different personalities too, right? Learning styles are completely different. That's why I think the way you're connecting to people is it's an essential thing that has to start changing. Unfortunately, it's early stages. These are early innings of this movement, of this change. So what would you say to companies? Like, how do they develop their wellness programs, stuff like that, when the soft skills might not necessarily be second nature to construction, right? Like, so you have companies that don't have a Leslie, don't maybe even have the resources to find one, because to be honest, Leslie, you may be in parts of the lower mainland are accessible, but there's a lot of cities, states, provinces that don't even have the ability to access somebody like you. How can a
Yeah.
company start making steps forward internally?
Well, I think if you're in Canada, well, and then I'm sure the CSA standard plays well down into the States as well. Is back in the early, I want to say 2013, the CSA standard worked with the Canadian Mental Health Association and brought a whole bunch of mental health experts together from a psychological safety perspective and put together a voluntary standard that we can follow. So you don't have to actually reinvent anything, which for me as a health and safety person out there, for the amount of JSAs that I've had to write, think to myself, man, it would just be nice if there was a community and a bank that you could just go to without having to constantly reinvent the wheel here. We're all talking about the same safe work procedures. I would start looking at that to begin with. And then I would start looking at organizations that do focus on mental health. Even if it's not even just construction based, there's enough resources that we can start to pick from. The University of British Columbia put together an amazing one called Heads Up Guys. And if it wasn't for the fact that I was watching the Stanley Cup playoffs last year, I probably wouldn't have heard about them. They did so much advertising during that time frame that I actually went out and took a look at what is there, and it's fantastic. I think what the problem is there's a lot. There's a lot, and I think companies can start getting themselves into a little bit of trouble because what I see on my end right now is it's just massive knee-jerk reaction. Let's just get everybody trained as a mental health first aid attendant. Physical first aid and mental health first aid are two completely separate entities. And I just want to throw it out there right now that we have legitimately no reporting processes or filing processes when it comes to a mental health first aid claim. So already there's a massive gap for our industry. We are taking people that have a strong safety background, and a lot of them have been raised in this industry to be the disciplinarian. because line management maybe didn't have the time, or they didn't have the fortitude to understand accountability and giving feedback. So you have an industry being forced into work that they might not even be received well. So I think there's an opportunity to start looking at our people and saying, who naturally is empathetic and compassionate? Like, who do we always find that people gravitate to talk to? Do you like listening? Let's teach you how to listen. Because listening doesn't mean, oh, I heard that. Oh, let me tell you my story over here. Let me tell you this. Let me tell you this. It's listen to Gabe. Wow, that sounds like you're really going through something today. How can I support you? Not, wow, I went through a similar situation a couple of months ago. You know what I did? I did this. I did that. I did this. I did that. And Gabe goes, sweet. Not safe to talk to because I just got advice dumped on. So I'm just going to keep myself to myself. Deflect your questions as they come.
That's so interesting because it is human nature to like, you hear something, you're like, oh, how can I fix it? Maybe I can tell them about what I think they should do. And a lot of the times when you're in that state, you're like, the last thing you want to hear is somebody's advice. And you're right. Sometimes you just want them to listen or be there, right? That's a good takeaway. Listening and asking the question, right? Or ask the question and listen.
Yeah, and you know, like it's worked well for me. And then for everybody who I've met who have been heard, or just when you do listen, and I'm sure, Rob, you've been in the same situation, thanks. I didn't mean to unload. Well, yeah, you did. And I'm glad you had a safe spot to do it. And like, are you okay? Cool. 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 Let's move on. I have this kind of little in my background now that I can come in and check in on these things. Right. But for sure, I think maybe one of the biggest takeaways is trying to get away from that knee-jerk reaction, right? And not just sending everybody in that has a health and safety degree or health and safety or our first aid attendant through mental health first aid classes, thinking that we're meeting the objective, because there's so much more to this than what that 2-day course can actually cover.
Yeah, it's very different skill sets, right? Like you said, somebody to fix something reactively or prevent something physically from happening, first aid. And then there's that soft skills that have to be there in an individual it's the human side of things that if you want to start getting into the mental health, mental fitness, and it's complicated. Human beings are complicated. And so you can easily, it can go the wrong direction if you don't have the right training too, right? So it's
And I think maybe if we start to take a look at situations where we're starting to, so for me, what I see the explosiveness. Yes. So I'm on the job site and F-bombs are flying, doors are slamming, tools are just like, poof, poof. And you think to yourself, yes, that still happens. There's still a lot of emotion here. So if we're sitting down with somebody and we're saying to them, we're going to send you for anger management training, stress reduction training, maybe what we should be doing to them is saying, hey, we're going to teach you these soft skills. We're going to teach you how to listen, how to compose yourself in that split tiny second when your fuse goes from this to nothing, so that you can go, bammo, breathe and move on.
Rob loves that one.
100%. If our industry just learned that very simple breathwork tactic of breathe and move on, Leslie, I'd be curious what your thoughts are of how do you go from the mentality you brought up, the fixer, because let's face it, construction people are fixers. We like to fix problems, real problems, building problems, and even now human problems. It's really hard to sit back and be quiet. What other things do you have in that candy bag past the BAMO breath that you're sharing with those workers of how do you teach them? This is one of the phrases that we heard a few months back that I locked into that I love for this industry. When we're talking about mental fitness, how to teach somebody to pause when they're pissed?
Pause when they're pissed. I like that. I'm a huge advocate for structured sessions, like vent sessions. And I'm a huge advocate for the daily debrief. We get away from it And then honestly, we get away from it when our job sites don't allow us the space to have our company vehicles close. We have to park farther away. There's no after work tailgate connection anymore. You got the space, your trailer's right there, and your truck is right there. There's always arms hanging over it at the end of the day and this moment of communication that happens. We don't do that, especially if we don't have the space. And we just we don't make it important enough to put it in our schedule and do our time with it. I think it's easy to talk to leadership about it, and I think leadership can easily think that that's something that the craft should do. But there's so much benefit in giving your site team and leader the space to vent. And I would say vent Gabe in a safe spot where we're not worried about HR. We've given it a bit of structure, and we've given it this space of confidentiality where you can go off and we can leave what needs to be left, and then you don't have to carry that baggage going forward. As for the breathing, I talk about your BAMO breath. I'm like, you guys are so already doing this. I go, you just don't understand how you do it because you're stressed, and your BAMO breath comes because your vape hits your lips. Because you naturally slow down when you're breathing in. When you're inhaling, I'm like, so what we need to do is get rid of the coping mechanism and just have the breath. Because they understand it, right? They're upset, they're pissed, the door is slamming, they're up. Where do you find them right away? Smoke it.
Yeah, you just smoke.
Vape
Oh,
it.
wow. Oh, wow. I'm going to have to share that with Dr. Seth. They're like, hey, the construction industry already knew how to do a BAMO breath. It was just a cigarette or a cigar or now a vape pen. So how do we give them just an empty cartridge and be like, here, you just need some BAMO. It's full
Call
of
it a
BAMO.
BAMO
Take it all day. Yeah,
It's
we
a
need
placebo.
BAMO cartridges.
Yeah.
Yeah, just your BAMO cartridge, right? Nothing in it but a placebo. But man, did I just slow
Ooh.
down? My
And
breathing
maybe
slowed down.
the deeper you breathe, the more profanity that just comes out of it. Like, F
I don't
this.
know.
No, that's the exhale. That would be the exhale, like that long, drawn out F-U-C-K.
Yeah.
It's like that button. What's the button? Easy button?
Yes.
The
Yeah.
FU button or F this button?
That's good.
That is good.
Mm-mm.
Leslie, we there's something that we talked about, porta potty movement a few years ago. I had this idea that I was like, hey, I don't think people are comfortable enough with their mental health or mental fitness things that they're dealing with. They're never going to go up to a bulletin board, or they're never going to go talk to someone. How can we connect to somebody in the one place that they have privacy? And then I was like, the porta potty.
Yeah.
And so we talked about that. Now, I may have had sparked something, but I definitely didn't follow through with it. But you actually followed through with that. Tell us all about what you're doing there, because I think that's pretty cool.
And so it is you that I have to thank for the idea. And it did take a while to kind of figure out how to bring it all together. So what we were talking about was how cool you were talking about, like, how cool would it be if you just had this QR code you could zap while you're in there, and it would help you with your mental health. I thought, yeah, that's really cool. How am I going to do this? And then I'm on site, I want to say about 6 months ago, and this worker comes up to me and he's struggling and he wants to understand how to just not be angry, how to communicate a little bit better. And I thought, wow. Then I was talking to another buddy. He said, you know what would be really cool is if I could just get like a 60-second clip. And I thought, oh my gosh, is this actually coming together for me in front of my eyes? Is my ideal audience actually telling me what they want me to create for them? So I just started, so coming from the BCCSA, I had a squawky chicken that squawked out my site potty mouth, which the audience absolutely loved. And I thought, you got 60 squawk chicken seconds. Let's go through a mental health tip. And I just started to record them, and I started to send them out to a couple of my really close friends in the industry that you would think to yourself, you're not going to put that in front of that guy. That is no way. He's just all sorts of ruggedness. And they said to me, I like this. Keep it coming. Send me another one. Send me another one. And so now we've got, I want to say we're probably up at about 60. And we're excited because we're looking at the future of it and maybe being able to talk to an organization like yourself, like Salus, who is so out there and say, this is how you can help your clients get in front of mental health, a 60-second clip at a time. When these guys are getting their FLHAs or they're off to the porta potty or whatever they're doing, they get this 60-second clip that's just a sound wave. There's nothing visual in the background to distract them. And that's how we have the opportunity without puking mental health on them, like putting it in front of them in a space that they're going to actually accept and use, rather than these fancy fandangle toolbox talks that we're having chat GBT help us write, and we don't really fundamentally understand what we're talking about, but hey, we got to get out there and we got to say something.
Yeah. I think it's so important. I think that meeting people where they are, right? Not trying to get them to go from here to here, because it's hard. It's overwhelming. People will shut down, and these little sound bites, 10-second, 15-second, 60-second videos, huge. And we'd love to work with you on that.
No, that would be really cool. I think that there's definitely lots of opportunity just to get it in front of people. It's right there, and it's, as a superintendent, I know it's not taking a lot of time at 60 to 90 seconds for these guys to get a little bit of a mental health clip, right?
Well, yeah, I think this is, I don't know what better way to wrap things up than that last story too, Leslie. This has been this is impactful for me. I love this conversation. You are definitely come a million miles since the first time we met, and it was our first speech together. Hearing you talk now is inspiring, and I know you're making a difference. And so don't stop. Keep going. Keep pulling more and more people behind you. And thank you for everything you're doing.
No, thank you, and thanks for this, right? Because I think the other piece that we get to introduce to employers is people like me exist. People like Rob exist. People like you exist. And we're on job sites and we can serve an amazing function. And maybe it's not an HR rep. Maybe we need to really swing out into marketing and stuff. And maybe we have a relationship manager. And that's their job, is to just be in the field and have conversations with individuals. And when it's really important, we take these conversations to the avenues where they need to be. Hey, Mr. Superintendent, I think it'd be a really good idea if you could connect with this worker, because I really feel like they need your guidance right now. I really think like they need your coaching and your mentoring. But all of this other fodder that's kind of in the way of your day, let me handle that. Let me stick handle all of that for you, because when I do it, the guys, they go back to work. It's no problem. Let's put the right people in the right place, and you just watch what it's gonna do for your absentee rate, because people want to be where they know for sure
And performance.
they are valued.
Performance is going to improve. Like think about when you're at a sports game, a hockey game. You have that one person that the Canucks, Vancouver Canucks, the hockey team hires to rally the crowd. They're going around with a drum. They're getting everyone revved up. Imagine a job site. I'm not saying somebody goes around with a drum, but somebody that's going in there to making sure people are operating at a full efficiency mentally, motivated to be there, feel the accolades, feel like everything's going forward in the right direction, want to show up for work, want to tell their kids to come into the industry, not say, hey, I want a better life for you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the goal. So
Yeah.
Oh, Rob, let's we can't end it in any other way. This is amazing. Love the conversation. So
It's been an amazing conversation, Leslie. Thank you so much for your time to join us today, for sharing your stories and your insights and wisdom. And hopefully some of those nuggets out of the candy bag make sense to other people. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, Gabe, thanks again for joining me today. And that's all the time we've got for this episode. So thank you for listening to this episode of the Frontline Focus Podcast, powered by Salus. If you enjoyed this episode, then please subscribe to our show on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Or better yet, leave us a comment on our social media platforms to let us hear your thoughts about this conversation. Until next time, keep moving safety forward.